Okay, so this is Mr. Wells here with our instructions for the Greenhouse Effect Lab. So as far as initial setup, we need a LabQuest. You're actually going to need two flexible temperature probes, two different flexible temperature probes, light socket, light bulb, heat shield. You're going to need two styrofoam containers that both have soil in them. These should already be pre-made for you, so they should already have soil in them. But you're going to need two of these. You'll need a rubber band, saran wrap, half-meter stick. I've got our pole and clamp set up already pre-prepared here, but you're going to need a pole and a couple clamps. And I've just got two pieces of tape too that you're going to need in a little bit here. So the first thing that you want to do is I'm going to hook up my socket to the heat shield. I'll just screw on there nice and tight, and then I'll hook up my light bulb into the socket. And I'll hook this whole guy up to the clamp here. So I want to make sure that I have my two flexible temperature probes hooked up to my LabQuest like this, so you're reading two different temperature readings. So we got two different flexible temperature probes, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to tape them into the styrofoam containers. So here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to tape it along the side here, so pay kind of close attention right here. I'm going to put the black end right on the inner edge of the styrofoam container. I'm going to tape that down. And the only thing you want to make sure, you don't want it to be kind of off to the side like that. You kind of want it maybe a centimeter, half centimeter below the top surface of the styrofoam container. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other side here. So again, make sure they're arced just a little bit down, right about in the center of your styrofoam container, taped along the side with the black end of the temperature probe, kind of right on the edge of the inner ring of the styrofoam container. And then for one of these, it doesn't matter which one, you're going to take your styrofoam container, you're going to cover it in saran wrap, kind of like that. And if you need help getting this clamp down, you can call a neighbor over, you can call Mr. Wells over, or if you're working at the group, this should be pretty easy, but you're going to actually want to clamp down your styrofoam container with the rubber band. All right, so let's set up the LabQuest real quick. So I've got my two temperature probes plugged in. I'm going to go to our options here, and I'm going to change the rate to 0.5 samples per second, 0.5 samples per second. Interval can be at 2 seconds. And actually for this one, the duration, it's going to be kind of a long experiment. We're going to do 1,800 seconds. If you do a little bit of mental math, that's right about 30 minutes. Hit OK. Okay, so I've got everything set up now. The only thing that I have to do is I have to adjust the heat shield so that it's a little bit further down. So what I want you guys to set this at is, let's say right about 35 centimeters. So I'm going to move this a little bit down. 35 centimeters from the base of the heat shield down to the table. Okay, so when I'm happy with where I have it leveled with the base of this shield at about 35 centimeters from the table. I'm going to move these two styrofoam containers in. And so what this is representing, the purpose of this lab is that we're modeling the greenhouse effect. And so the covered container is representing, maybe like a planet, right, with an atmosphere. The saran wrap layer on the top acting as the atmosphere in this experiment. And then we're going to compare that to a control planet maybe that doesn't have an atmosphere, maybe a planet like Mercury. I've got my temperature probes right about in the middle of the containers, kind of just hanging loose right about in the middle. I'm gonna make sure that I have it, level in between the light source. I gotta move my containers a little bit so that you have them kind of pointed down right in the middle. I've already got my LabQuest set up, so it's set at half a sample per second for 1,800 seconds. This is kind of a long procedure, so here's the deal. I'm gonna hit play, turn on the light bulb. So this is definitely the most important part of the lab now at this point. The light is on and it's going to be beaming down for 10 minutes, right? So you have to have the light source on for 10 of the first 30 minutes. So on your timer, it's going to count down by seconds. That's 600 seconds. So for the first 600 seconds, you're going to leave the light on. You need to set a timer on one of your group members' iPads so that you know when to stop after 10 minutes or 600 seconds. But make sure you're also paying attention to the LabQuest here, because if you leave it on for more than 10 minutes, if it gets to be a little bit further than 10 minutes, it means you're going to have to run the experiment again. So make sure that you have that timer set so that you don't have to run it again. Okay, so I'm back. It's been 600 seconds. I'm going to turn the light off. So now 10 minutes, 600 seconds has elapsed. For the next 10 minutes, so another 600 seconds, you're just going to leave the light off. All right, so it's been another 10 minutes, and so for our last 10-minute trial, I'm just going to turn the light back on. So this is the final trial. You're going to leave it on for the rest of the 10 minutes of the experiment. So when it completes its run at 1,800 seconds, it'll stop itself, and that's it. So 10 minutes with the light on, 10 minutes with the light off, 10 minutes with the light back on again. Oof, we're finally all done. I'm going to turn the light bulb off. And that should do it. So make sure you take down all of your equipment, put it back where it belongs, and then we can start to finish up the lab worksheet and hook up our data that we just finished to graphical analysis. So I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So take a look at your final data. This is how mine turned out. Doesn't have to look exactly like this, but it should look pretty similar. So my channel 2 in this case, and you might have had channel 1 and channel 2 mixed up. My channel 2 was my covered, and my channel 1, this blue line, was my uncovered. And it seems pretty clear that in my covered trial, this red line here, it got hotter, it stayed hotter, and it got hotter again. And so part of the post lab is trying to understand why that happened, right? Why the covered one was getting hotter and also staying hotter. And we're gonna hook this up to graphical analysis. Do data sharing, camera, and it already scanned my code for me. Make sure you scan that barcode. I'll hit connect. So this is kind of what your final data should look like. So once you get this hooked up in graphical analysis, make sure you screenshot it. This is what you're going to put in your lab write-up as your main piece of graphical evidence for the experiment. Make sure that you make a little key for me. I have a red line and a blue line. Make a little red and blue key for which temperature was which. The fact that in my case, the red temperature was the covered and the blue temperature was the uncovered. That might be different for you. Okay, so I've got my final graph. Make sure you take down all of your lab station materials, put them where they belong, and you should be good to go. We've got our final graph that we're going to put into our lab worksheet. And then there's just a few questions at the end. So let me know if you need any help answering the questions. Otherwise, this was our greenhouse lab instruction video. Thanks for watching.